ASMR for everybody.
Yeah, he doesn't like either mic this time.
Yeah. What's going on, everybody? My name's Nick.
And I'm Joe.
And we're
Nick and Joe. And Duncan.
We just finished watching episode 2 of Startup, and so we're back with a segment we like to call
K-Drama Club.
All right, so we literally just watched episode 2 of Startup. If you haven't yet, watch our reactions to episode 1. Up here, it'll show up somewhere up at the top of the screen. Come back and watch this episode. If you want to watch along with us, we are going to try to keep up with this series and, each week watch the episodes that come out, react with them, and react with you all. So leave comments as we are talking about the show and let us know what you thought about that particular episode down below. I think the first thing that I just want to say that I like about these shows, about this show and, Itaewon Class was the same, but it's not like American TV where it's like a constant cliffhanger and a constant like this mystery that we're trying to uncover over the course of 16 episodes. It's like stuff happens, it gets set up, and it moves. Like it just goes.
This show in particular, they have multiple storylines going, so there's like something always happening, but it's never like confusing or crazy or out of order. It's just running through, letting you know like what's happening and all these different kind of like dynamics.
Yeah.
Kind of with the same characters, but just like different like dynamics, what's going on with each individual person.
And a lot of it is because they do the background work of like, okay, the first episode, ton of flashbacks. You're going to see these characters' childhood. So you can understand the 20-something-year-old character. You can understand their motivations that were caused by something that happened when they were a kid. But you understand that like by episode 2, we don't need like hours and hours of like backstory or like, it's not jarring at all. Like we feel for these characters, we're connected to them,
and it doesn't have to flash back to something different every episode to like fill in a blank that they kind of just give you all the information to start, and then it's like, all right, from here maybe they flash back to a specific thing that they already showed you to kind of remind you like this is kind of what we're referencing here. Yeah. It's never like, oh, this happened, so now we're going to give you some random new piece of information to make you understand it.
You can connect the dots. The show doesn't have to connect the dots for you.
It just shows you everything in the first 2 episodes, and then from there, you're going to go.
Of course, main setup here is like Dalmi is trying to impress her rich sister, trying to show her that she made the right choice despite not going to live with a rich step parent.
Yes.
And, living her kind of normal middle-class life with her grandmother. And she wants to impress her by going to this, networking event with this guy that she thinks she knows from writing letters when she was a kid. Her pen pal that is supposedly the successful, super smart guy. Yeah. But, of course, the letters were made up by the grandmother and Good Boy.
So at the same time, Taomi and Chi Pyong are both trying to find Tosan.
Yes, because they're trying to find him before she finds him. Because he has no idea about any of the letters or anything.
Exactly, and they don't want her to find out that it was all fake. So the grandmother wants Chi Pyong to find Tosan and get him to go to the networking event,
which I still think is the worst plan ever.
Yeah, I think not
Chi
good.
Pyong should have just said, "I changed my name on the letters, and I'm your secret admirer," because he's the actual one who wrote the letters, and he's the one that she actually has fallen in love with.
Yeah, and theoretically. But also, he wrote the letters with the grandmother, so I think he feels kind of like weird about it. Like he probably doesn't feel quite the same like connection that she does.
He probably wasn't being himself; he was being like a character.
A character, yeah. So he probably doesn't feel the same like emotional, maybe some sort of emotional connection because you're like communicating with somebody and you understand their feelings and you empathize with them, but not the same like she told him real things about her. Right. Like he did not tell her real things about him.
And grandma wants to keep the secret alive for her granddaughter.
Yeah, exactly. Or for herself. We don't really know
Yeah.
She doesn't want her granddaughter to be mad at her, I would imagine.
Yeah. And I like the whole montage. There were a couple montages in this episode, which I really liked. There was the coffee shop thing. And then there's the thing where she's like getting, not hit on, but like guys are asking her out.
Yeah.
And like she's just turning everybody down because she's comparing them to her pen pal.
Yeah.
And the grandma is just sitting there like, oh, like
be patient. Be patient.
And I think that's so funny. And we learned, I think there were a lot of scenes with Dalmi in this episode that made her just look like this goofy like person.
Yeah.
Which is funny. They do the thing that is in The Devil Wears Prada where she's like getting ready. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
No.
She's like, it's like the whole thing is like fashion, right? And there's like really fashion forward girls. You see them all getting ready. And then you see the main character who's not very fashion forward and not rich or anything getting ready. They do the same exact montage in this. And it's just funny to see her like that. And she's just goofy. She's just kind of like weird, which I think is cool. And you don't see a lot of female characters like that, I guess.
Mhm.
Like the goofy, like doesn't care
Yeah.
or like whatever.
She has a lot of energy and
For sure.
it's like a fun kind of energy.
Yeah.
And she's not very like conventional, I would say,
Yeah.
in the way that she acts or the way that she thinks.
Despite the fact that she's like the pretty lead character,
Yeah.
like she's not a comic relief character. She's
Yeah.
not like the weird girl, quote
Mhm.
unquote. She's just
She's like the main character of the show.
yeah, and she's just who she is.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a cool angle.
I think that this episode really set up like who the main characters are going to be and
Yeah.
who the show is really going to follow. For the most part, I think there are three. It's Talmi, obviously, Chi Pyong, and then in this episode they really went in on Tosan and like giving him what his whole story is because he just got introduced like very briefly at the end of the first episode.
Right.
So this episode was like a lot of setup on like his situation and where he stands. So I think those three people are going to be the characters that we see.
I am very curious if it's going to be some kind of love triangle situation where, you have the fake pen pal and the real pen pal, but there's only one real girl. You know? She was writing letters. She was authentically doing that all herself. Meanwhile, you have the fake letter writer and the person who they were pretending to be, and that's all going to come to a head
At some point.
Especially because Tosam is going to eventually have to confess, even though he's read the letters, that he was not the original letter writer.
Yeah. You can see in this episode a lot of just they're setting up all these little things and it's all going to lead to these like major events later in the show that are just like failures from what is getting set up right now.
It's the classic like stack of lies, and then eventually it all comes crumbling down.
At some point it's going to come down and it's just going to be interesting to see which characters are the ones that end up like falling in love or like because we don't really know yet like where everybody is going to stand quite now. Like they set it up pretty well. Like in the middle of the episode, we were getting that huge payoff where she finally meets Tosan and Talmi are finally going to meet, and he has
on a Craigslist meeting with a signed
and she
baseball.
thinks that it's like this big thing, and he has no idea.
Yes.
And then he kind of gets intercepted.
2 minutes of slow motion staring into each other's eyes, walking towards each other from a drone angle, from the other angles, like
and
then intercepted, which I didn't expect.
Yeah.
I expected them to meet and like something to happen. Like I don't know. That's another cool thing about the show is like it does some cliche things of like a love story or whatever, but it does go in directions that you don't expect.
Exactly.
One character we did not see a lot of, we saw a little bit of, was Injae though.
Yeah.
Which I think it would seem that she would be the main antagonist of the show. But we just didn't get a lot from her this episode. But we did get a pretty revealing scene of her meeting with her mother.
Yeah.
Which was pretty interesting because she's supposed to be the character that made the right choice, quote unquote.
Yeah.
She picked the mom with the rich stepdad. But it turns out that the relationship with mom is not so good.
Not good. And the relationship with mom and the stepdad is not good.
It's not good either. Stepdad cheated on the mom, so he's a dirtbag. But she's still loyal to the stepdad.
Yeah.
And it seems like their minds work in similar ways because they're both very money driven.
Yeah, the stepdad and Injae. And you can see a little bit of regret from the mother as well. She said, I can't believe I left your father for this jerk.
Which is crazy.
And
that's the whole series of events that has this whole show going.
Yeah. I think that the show is going to be about Talmi, like kind of showing Injae, like this kind of setting her on this path of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Learning that, like, what actually makes a person happy. I think they're setting that up now where she kind of doesn't really care about people's feelings, or it seems like doesn't even care about feelings at all, like her own, other people's. Like it's just not something that registers with her. It's all about
make her care.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see.
That's what we have to find out. Because it seems like the mother still has empathy. She misses when she tells her she originally wasn't going to go to the networking event, and then she says Talmi is going to be there.
Yes, but the line she says when she invites the mom to the networking event, and the mom goes, "I'm not interested at all in your work."
Yeah.
Just straight up.
Yeah.
But like you said, she says, "Oh, Talmi's going to be there," and she goes, "Oh, when is it?" But we see that party scene. Do you think we're going to get more party scene in episode 3? Because we don't see the mom meet Talmi.
Yeah, I think that it's going to pick up pretty soon
from the party
from there, because right when it ends, we get Talmi and Tosan finally meeting. Tosan is going to pretend that he was the one writing the letters.
Right.
His motivations for doing this are still really unclear because he didn't accept the money. that because Chi Pyong had offered him money to do it,
Right.
and he didn't want it. He just wanted his company to get into Sandbox, and he's like, well, I can't do this, or I can't do that. And then he said, your company's horrible.
He was so rude.
Yeah,
about
he
it.
was very rude. But it's the kind of like you see that side of him in the first episode when he's a kid. And
when he's a kid, but now he seemed like a good business guy, kind of in contrast to like Injay.
Yeah.
But then you see that side of him come out when he totally rips into him about the company, when he tries to do like a this for that, like, oh, I'll do this for you if you get us into Sandbox or whatever.
You can also see that when he's older in the first episode when the gadget, the voice activated gadget isn't working, and he like yells at the guy who works for him. I think that part of it too is.
So we'll see some growth from him.
Is kind of the growth you saw from him as a kid when he went from like being super brash and unreasonable to like when he was hugging the grandmother before he left and she gave him the shoes and like accepting that help and being vulnerable.
That somebody can care.
Yeah, like being vulnerable. I think like it's when he got back in touch with the grandmother at the beginning of this episode is kind of like that path again, and you're gonna see like similar growth from him along the way.
He kept the shoes.
The
shoes the grandmother gave him. He's rich, has this huge closet, all this expensive clothing, and he keeps those ratty shoes that the sneakers that he got when he was a kid. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah,
I love the grandmother in this episode.
Yeah,
I think the grandmother's a great character. I think their relationship is awesome. I don't know. They're just funny.
Yeah, the grandmother's relationship with Taomi is funny, and then the grandmother's relationship with Chi Pyong is also funny. So like she's got a good dynamic. And the thing is like she knows both of them, but they both don't know each other. Like he just knows that he wrote letters to her.
Yeah.
And like that's really it. But she does not know anything about him. She doesn't even know that he exists, I don't think.
Right.
So that's a whole funny part of it. And I think that the one other thing in this episode that was super important is kind of the Tosan backstory, where like his startup is not doing well. His only investors are his parents.
Yes.
And they're very, very mad at him.
Yes.
You can tell it's the kind of situation where because he was a really smart kid, they expected him to grow up and be very successful. But he decided to kind of do his own thing with technology and coding.
They didn't even want to bring him to the birthday party.
Yeah, because he's almost 30 and he doesn't work for a good company and doesn't have a wife. He's not married.
They say that about somebody else. They say that about Chi Pyong.
Yeah,
right?
you're over 30 and you're not married.
And then they say it again. About
Tosan.
Tosan.
Yeah, it's a thing in Korean culture. It's like getting married and.
We're getting there.
Yeah. So thanks. I'll be married. I'll definitely.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Yikes. By 30. But I think that what they gave in this episode is kind of like all the backstory we really need on Tosan, and I think that's all we're really gonna get. It's like he's started his own tech company. The program and everything apparently is really good.
It seems really good. It can identify the toilet paper and the instant noodles.
And it can identify that his dad is a toilet.
Exactly. That was so funny.
But
so they entered the contest.
And
the big fancy contest with like investors from Amazon and Google and all that stuff.
San Francisco.
In San Francisco. The big fancy thing at the end, or the big teaser at the end scene was, the judging panel saying, oh, this is really promising. And pretty much that they're going to get selected, even though the small team, the three of them were saying like, oh no, this is like a 1 in a million. We're probably not going to get this. But they were excited to have entered. But that's going to change things. So I think the business side of things is going to be the forcing mechanism.
Yeah.
Because now he doesn't need to go into Sandbox. Injay has a very successful startup, so they're all going to cross paths that way. I think that as everybody's like businesses start to collide or go head on, I think that's where things are going to start to mix and mingle.
Yeah. I just wonder where Taomi fits into all that, because Tosan's going to have his startup, which is apparently, I think, going to start on the upswing, start seeing some success. And you have Injay, obviously, who has already a successful business, a lot of money. And you also have Chi Pyong, successful business, a lot of money. And then you kind of have the grandmother and Taomi like on the outside of all this. Yeah. And it's kind of weird to see like where they're gonna fit into that whole dynamic. Like, are they gonna be working for somebody, working with somebody, being part of something? Like, don't really know.
I think it depends on how much Tosam lies to her.
Yeah.
If he's saying that he's very successful right now, which he's not quite yet, that's going to intersect if he suddenly actually becomes very successful, because things are just not going to line up and not make sense. Yeah. Because he could pretend that he's successful while not being successful, but he can't pretend that he's successful and then suddenly become successful. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That would be a dead giveaway. But I'm excited to see what will happen.
Yeah.
and how it will all collide in episode 3.
Yeah, it's gonna start coming together.
I have to say about that end scene where it's American people speaking English.
Oh yeah,
This is the worst acting I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think that either they filmed it in Korea, and those were like
The only people who spoke English they could
they
find.
picked from a pool of actors that speak English in
Yeah.
Korea, and that's what you got. In which case, I'm gonna go to Korea and I'm gonna be an actor.
It was jarring how
Yeah.
bad it was. I was like, why are they
And
all
then the one
talking like
Korean
this?
guy in the scene was
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah, exactly, because he's probably an actual Korean actor that's
Yeah.
in the Korean film system or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. So that was a little.
That was so funny.
They were like talking like this.
Yes.
Like this
Oh.
technology is really great.
Where are they from? China? Europe?
Namto-san?
Yeah. Nam-do-san.
It was kind of good.
That's so funny.
I think the word is cringe.
Yeah, it was very cringe.
Pretty
It was
cringe.
so jarring. All the main characters seem like great actors.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like maybe they're not. I just don't speak Korean. I'm reading subtitles, so I have no idea. Maybe it could all be terrible acting. But I don't think so. I think it's more than just the
Yeah.
speaking.
Yeah, because like you notice like the kid who played Chi Pyong in the early scenes when he was young,
Oh,
like
he was
his
very aggressive.
Yeah, his acting
Yeah.
was a little intense, and you
Yeah.
can tell the facial expressions and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, the people who were speaking English, the dictation was a little off
little
for
weird.
sure.
That was cool. But excited for episode 3.
Yeah.
What are our predictions? What's going to happen in episode 3?
We're gonna
It's hard
see
to
the.
say.
I think we're gonna see the beginning of a relationship between Tosan and Taomi. Maybe the beginning of a relationship with Taomi and her mother.
Yeah.
Depending, that could go one of two ways. That could go with Taomi being like, yeah, no,
Or like F you.
yeah,
I don't
leave me
wanna-
alone.
Yeah.
Or it can go like a kind of, I think the mother looking for like a second chance,
Yeah.
because she feels like she blew something at some way, at some
Sure.
point along the line.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe Talmi even gets involved with the not involved with the stepfather, but like maybe he wants to invest in something, and she gets a relationship with them or something. I think in the next episode they kind of tease it at the end, but it could be far in the future. I'm wondering if this is going to move so fast that she finds out about the deception right away.
Right away?
Or not right away, but in the next episode.
Mhm.
And if there's 16 episodes and she finds out in episode 3, I have
Then
no idea. where
it's wide
gonna go.
open.
Yeah, yeah,
Then anything can happen.
But the way this show moves, I would not be surprised if that happened in the next episode. It's out, and we got to go watch it. So if you have thoughts about episode 2, predictions for episode 3, even thoughts on episode 3, leave them in a comment down below, and we will try to include user comments or viewer comments in a future video. But thank you for watching. If you enjoyed K-Drama Club, subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, leave us suggestions for other K-dramas to watch after we finish this one. We're super stoked on that, and stay tuned for more videos. This has been Nick and Joe. Have a good one.
Bye, Duncan.
We got done right at the right time.